bit of a statement of intent.
This is a real statement of intent, and it is a mega exciting transfer.
Absolute malaise at that football club.
We've got a football club who overpaid, overcontracted, and overpromised.
Hello and welcome to Transfers Exposed. I am Will Pugh. That over there is Dean Scoggins, the Sun's Deputy Head of Sport. And this is your exclusive press pass to the hottest transfer stories of the summer, direct from the Sun Sport News Desk. We are with you every single Tuesday and Thursday on the Sunsport YouTube channel until the transfer window slams shut, as is the only way that transfer windows close on September the 1st. Dino, great to be back again, mate. The first thing we're going to talk about is, of course, Newcastle's bid for Hugo Ekitike, club record £69.5 million. But just let us know what else we are going to be covering on Transfers Exposed this week.
Yeah, exciting one this morning, definitely on Sunsport. And then, that takes on Ekitike. We'll want to know what happens next with Alexander Isak, how that impacts that. We'll also have the latest on Morgan Gibbs-White and that saga, to use another
indeed.
transfer window word. Then we'll look at Marcus Rashford and Victor Gyökeres, the two glacial moves of the transfer window. And then, of course, we've got a couple of others with Manchester United goalkeeper, looking at John Victor, and the latest on two or three others from our FC column.
Absolutely, mate, absolutely. Look, Hugo Ekitike then, Gary Stonehouse, our man up north, writing about this big back page splash. God, very difficult. The back page splash, in fact, under this the wonderful picture of the cricket as you described it. But we are here to look at the football. Newcastle tabled a £69.5 million club record bid for Eintracht Frankfurt striker Hugo Ekitike. Now, this feels like a lot of Newcastle fans. We've got one of the bigger ones in the office in Sean Custis, of course. They'll bleat on, will they not? We've had all this money come in, and PSR is hampering us from being the biggest team in the world, which is where we belong and which is our destiny, etc., etc. Well, it finally feels like the shackles have come off a bit, because this is a move, a bit of a statement of intent.
Yeah, Champions League. Yeah. Champions League football, so therefore the money can be spent, as you say. Now the oil cans can open and they can start to spend some of that money that comes in. And look, it's a really exciting one for me, this, because there's two ways of looking at it. Right, straight away, Newcastle fans will be delighted and worried in equal measure, because first of all, brilliant bidding for a young, hungry, exciting goal scorer who proven to score goals in the Bundesliga, and then, oh no, what does that mean for Alexander Isak? So there's those two things to weigh up. So as you said, £69.5 million. There's another club who they've rejected £60 million for. We're not quite sure who that is. But we're working on that today. He got 22 goals last season for Eintracht Frankfurt, including a very, very good one against Tottenham Hotspur.
Absolutely.
Who, although the Tottenham defence did just back off until he decided to side foot it in the corner, but still a very good goal. Look, Chelsea have looked at him. Liverpool have been fans of him. Man United have been fans for him. Newcastle were actually in for him, I think it was 3 years ago, before they moved for Alexander Isak.
He went to PSG instead, didn't he?
That's right, yeah. Didn't quite work out for him there, and then he moved on to Eintracht Frankfurt, where coming of age, I suppose. Absolutely. European football and lots of goals.
And what a record they've got of producing top-class forwards.
Yeah, amazing. Absolutely, sort of the production line of forwards coming out of there. But Newcastle are briefing, telling anyone who wants to listen that this is not underlined, not capital letters, a replacement for Alexander Isak. That Eddie Howe wants to pair the two of them together. He wants the ability to rest one, play the other, and the forwards. And don't forget, we've got Anthony Elanga, who's gone there as well. So not as a striker, not as a striker, but as an attacking player. So it just gives them more options. Obviously, Callum Wilson was left, but yeah. Do you believe them?
Well, I mean, I do, because we've been reporting on Transfers Exposed for, it's a matter of weeks now rather than just days, that Newcastle, under no circumstances, and that has been a consistent message out of the club, and you can kind of tell sometimes when these things are negotiating ploys or otherwise, there will be, it's almost like an opening gambit briefing. And then once reporters up and down the country and across Europe start to do a little bit more digging and perhaps some information comes out from other camps, often the club's stance may then soften somewhat, mightn't it? Oh, okay, well, yeah, all right. We said we were no way we would take less than 70 million, for example. But yeah, if someone comes with 55, maybe we'll think about it. But we value him at 70. Don't forget
and so with
that.
Isak, we're talking 150.
Well, exactly that, and that was the line from the off, wasn't it? And in this instance, it hasn't shifted, has it? The Alexander Isak's people are probably going, well, this is very nice, and perhaps we'll get a bumper new deal out of it. He still hasn't signed that deal, of course, Isak, but
that would be the point that I believe it. That would be the point that I believe that there's no more movement.
Deal.
Yeah,
right.
When he signs his new deal.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he will go.
Yeah.
I just think that the window is open.
Yeah.
When you've A, gone in for a replacement, and B, you haven't signed the new contract. Who's to say that Liverpool or Manchester City or PSG or whoever it is come in and just go, well, it probably won't be Manchester City, that's daft because of Haaland, but if someone just comes in and goes £150 million offer and he wants to go, then they've now enabled that to happen by buying a replacement. They're not calling it a replacement at the moment, but yes.
Who's got 150 million though? Seriously, I mean, we're not just PSR factors. That in this day and age, I know transfers are slowly creeping up. What do we see? 117, 116 for Florian Wirtz to Liverpool. Who has got that sort of money?
Well, I think Liverpool could do it if they were to move a couple of players on, and obviously Liverpool are in a tragic and horrible situation after what happened to Diego Jota, and still yesterday, we see touching pictures in the paper of Bruno Fernandes and Diego Dalot laying a wreath at Anfield, and it's really horrible for Liverpool and Liverpool fans and players alike to even be thinking about transfers and the excitement's gone out of the transfer window for Liverpool, and for obvious reasons. But I think that Liverpool could do that fee if they were willing to push the boat and go that far. But look, that's a bit of speculation really about Isak. But I do think that this is a real statement of intent. Again, we've used that phrase. We used it with Liverpool, with Wirtz earlier in the window. And now we're talking about, Newcastle in the Champions League. They've dropped that money on Elanga. They're talking about more defensive and midfield reinforcements in other places as well. And, they've moved Callum Wilson on because they've decided he's not going to be the one to be the backup. And now they're talking about a guy that would, to be honest, slot into most Premier League teams' starting 11s, and if they go two up front with Ekitike and Isak, with Elanga one side and Anthony Gordon the other, I mean, I'm not sure where that leaves Harvey Barnes and the likes, but
then
wow,
you said,
that's exciting.
I said this the other week, it is exciting. I said this the other week, and you said, look, mate, they're in the Champions League. They need 4 players in those wide positions at least, plus 2 strikers as well. Eintracht had, just worth noting, this is by no means a done deal yet. Eintracht had been holding out for his £84 million release clause, and it seems it's quite interesting. I think you say about Newcastle briefing that this bid has been made. An unusual ploy from a club, really, because briefing that this is not an Isak replacement. The stance from the club, Gary Stonehouse has done great work with this and got the story to where it is. So but when then you go to a club after that and run a story by them, course, is a general process of talking to football clubs. Often they would go, we're not commenting on that. Other times they would go, oh, that's absolutely false. Don't write, that's incorrect. Or they might just say, listen, we're relaxed about that. In other words, write it. Yeah, it's fine. When the calls go in on one like this at Newcastle, and the response is, look, we're fairly relaxed about that. We won't talk about fees, blah 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 blah. But do not write.
He is not the Alexander Isak replacement.
Yeah.
So I like that. That's great, right? That's a bit of transparency from the football club. That's also an underlining for a manager like Eddie Howe that they're not. Football clubs don't often work aligned with a manager. Not always. And in this occasion, Eddie Howe is saying, I don't want Isak to go. I want somebody who can help us out if Isak gets injured, or I want to go into games where, listen, teams are going to park the bus against Newcastle this year because they're not going to get sucked out like they did previously and play into that Eddie Howe tactic. So there will be games where Newcastle then have to go, right, we're going to go all guns blazing, go 2 up, 2 wide and only 2 in midfield. And that's where, I mean, blimey, if you all of a sudden were the defence and you've got 2 flyers in Gordon and Alanga either side and you've got Ekitike and Isak up front, it's a bit of prey, isn't it, at that stage? So yeah, look, I think it's great. I think it's another example of why the Premier League is so brilliant. And look, we've got the money. The Premier League have got the money, and the clubs have got the money, and and it's almost making it more and more exciting every time one of these goes through. If we get Gyökeres, we get Ekitike, we've had the others added already, Florian Wirtz.
It's kind of wait to see him playing the Premier League.
It's absolutely mouthwatering that we're going to get the opening weeks of this season with these type of players.
Just quickly though, Dino, just before we move on to the frankly disgraceful fashion in which your club, Tottenham Hotspur, has handled themselves in the Morgan Gibbs-White saga, tongue-in-cheek there, of course. Ekitike, now, he has been on the radar of the other clubs, like you mentioned. Chelsea were showing a particular interest. Obviously got Liam Delap. Doesn't necessarily mean they won't go again. But they have
Pedro
got
as well.
Exactly. Yeah. But they have got enough forward players, I believe, now.
I mean, if they ship Jackson, then that's
potentially,
different.
Potentially. But just on style-wise, you sort of briefly mentioned Ekitike. Could he play up front with Alexander Isak? Just style-wise, what have you... Obviously, you've seen him in the Europa League, as you mentioned, against Tottenham. But just generally, given your knowledge on all things European football, particularly with the Bundesliga fans we've got in the office, who I know talk very highly of him. What do you know about him? How do you see him style-wise fitting in if he was to make a move to either Newcastle or somewhere else in the Prem?
I would say one of the reasons some of the Newcastle fans might be slightly worried is because he's probably the closest to Isak of all of them, and that's not, if you've got both of them, that's not saying they can't play together. But if you were comparing him to a player, then it's a magic touch. It's a decent amount of pace. I'd say Isak's slightly quicker, but he's not physical in presence wise, but he's an imposing figure, as in he's tall and he's quick, but the thing for me that I've noticed in him a lot was his touch. It's his touch in tight areas around the penalty area. So if you work as a pair and you work in tandem, York and Cole weren't that dissimilar from a build perspective and the way they played together. But Cole in behind with York's touch, that sort of thing again could be a frightening prospect. So
absolutely. Well, 22 goals and 12 assists in all competitions last season across 48 games, and like we say, 23 years of age. It makes sense from a financial perspective,
and the wages aren't crazy either. 50 to 60,000 a week in the Bundesliga.
That's it.
Newcastle could probably double that and still without even blinking. Yeah.
Totally. Dino, come on then. Morgan Gibbs-White, joking of course earlier on about the disgraceful way in which I described Tottenham's conduct in this matter. That certainly though, although tongue-in-cheek from us, is how Evangelos Marinakis, Nottingham Forest owner, feels about the situation, fuming, as is very on brand for him, to be fair, about the situation.
Extremely litigious, Evangelos Marinakis. Let's be careful.
Allegedly very on brand for Evangelos Marinakis, but he is fuming. His complaint seems to be that he wasn't. Tottenham didn't go through the proper channels. He wants to know how on earth they were aware of Morgan Gibbs-White's release clause.
Oh wow! How on earth?
Because that never happens in football. He also wants to know why on earth Tottenham allegedly didn't go through the proper channels, i.e., submitting the bid to Nottingham Forest before agreeing terms with Morgan Gibbs-White. Now, what do you make of it all? What do you think of it? What's the latest?
Well, Tom Barkley has updated us this morning in NFC, our football confidential column. So they have Nottingham Forest, Evangelos Marinakis, lodged an official complaint.
Yep.
This is like old-fashioned tapping up accusations, basically.
Quite.
And it's quite. I find it quite funny because it's one of those things that's gone out of the game. When I first started reporting
complaints about it,
or stories about it. When I started in football journalism, and while you were still in short trousers, I think the tapping up storm was and so and so's been contacted without the club's permission and it just went out of the game because football clubs realised it was a completely futile exercise in complaining about agents and players talking amongst themselves. It's an absolute nonsense that anybody thought that Spurs don't know what Nottingham Forest's value of a player is. B, what the wages are. And you can go on websites like transfers.com and find out what a player's contract value is and find out, more or less what his wages are. So it's not I get it, right? I'm not saying that Nottingham Forest shouldn't be annoyed and shouldn't lodge a complaint. Fine, go for it. And what's the point? I think what they're actually trying to do is obviously eke out a bit more money. But they have put a £60 million clause in his contract, and that clause has been met. I mean, I'm not saying for a second Tottenham would do this. Please, I don't want Daniel Levy on the phone.
This is a litigious minefield.
It is a little bit. But what's to say that Tottenham haven't just said, well, that was just our starting bid. We value him at £60 million. We think he's a £60 million player. Well, has that triggered his his release clause? What a remarkable turn of events.
But Marinakis seems annoyed that, being annoyed that someone has leaked the value of the clause. That, again, it just seems totally futile. I know a lot of the things you're saying, the reason tapping up Storm stories stopped was because it's so commonplace in football, right?
Yeah, but it's not just in football,
what do you do? How do you prove it?
Yeah, exactly. But it's not just in football. Like, if, you deal with an estate agent when you're selling your property empire, and if all of a sudden you go, look, my line in the sand is £60 million, right? I am not selling for a penny less than £60 million, and then all of a sudden,
my house, and
all of a sudden the agent in the middle sort of we might have a buyer. Oh well, we're thinking about 50. Well, no. I don't think it's that. Well, what about 55? No, I don't think it might be that. Or what about 60?
Yeah.
I'm not confirming nor denying anything. Maybe you should talk to them. And look,
you should put a bid in to see, test the waters
and see where you are. And look, let's grow up about this, right? That he's a quality footballer. I actually love this from a Spurs, with a Spurs hat on. But Nottingham Forest have got to dig their heels in because they don't want to lose a quality footballer. So don't begrudge Nottingham Forest playing the game in it. But what is the end game? What happens now if Morgan Gibbs-White hands in a transfer request, which then I would imagine, and I haven't seen the final details of the contract, but if you hand in a transfer request,
everyone else does.
But then that sort of opens up the possibility of a release clause.
When do we hear transfer requests these days?
But that's another reason about contractual stuff in football is the reason that none of these players ever actually put a transfer request in is because they lose a loyalty bonus.
Yeah, it's like when people say, "Our managers should just walk." It's like, what are you talking
they're
about?
not going to.
Millions.
But
of
in this case, it could be somewhere in there that there's a meeting halfway of Tottenham paying a certain amount of money, Morgan Gibbs-White waiving a certain fee, loyalty fee and your image right bonus and stuff like that. Exactly. And then somewhere in there, Forest accepting that they've got a player that wants to play Champions League football and is desperate to go one step on to get into the England squad next year. And is a player worth that much if he no longer wants to be there? So that's that. I'm not saying that Morgan Gibbs-White would do anything other than give 100%, but that's a really, really tight line. Yeah,
he was back in training on Monday, wasn't he? Big smile on his face. The constant.
There's a great video of him in the pub with a Forest fan that was doing the rounds on social media as well, saying, "You're going to stay, aren't you? You're going to." Actually, I think it was on the back of a golf course. Not to be unfair to Morgan Gibbs-White, he wasn't in the pub. He was at a bar at a golf club. Obviously not drinking alcohol before pre-season, but yeah. So
he was expected to have a medical on Friday in London, right? He's back in Forest training Monday morning, big smile on his face. Now, I got caught out on the radio on the Thursday. Mike McGrath, formerly of Sunsport, of course, was one of the first to this story, if not the first. And I was on air on the radio and just got sort of thrown this one at me. Oh, Morgan Gibbs-White to Tottenham, story's just coming out, £60 million. And at the time, I was a bit caught flat-footed, if I'm honest. And so, obviously, with Elanga going as well, I'd be surprised, compared them to Brentford and Bournemouth. Forest, I'd be surprised if they had an appetite to let two of their star players go in after the amazing season they had last season. Wasn't aware of that stage of the release clause or of any of the details since. Now, again, I think we're all agreed that it's a bit of a peculiar way, if not just a unique way of approaching things by Marinakis. Now, that's not unusual for him. He approaches lots of things in a unique way.
In a unique way,
yeah.
Yes. Including referees and
yeah, well, quite, and his own manager
and
sometimes.
his own managers. Yeah.
But just quickly though, do you see this one going through eventually? And for Tottenham, we've already got, we did Mohamed Kudus to Tottenham the other day. You said, not necessarily done there. Bit out of left field, to be honest. We haven't mentioned this before. Not huge reports around about it.
Amazing.
They don't do Eze if this happens, though, surely now.
Well, I've no idea anymore.
Well, true,
I don't know whether someone's got Daniel Levy tied up in a downstairs room and has stolen his wallet or something like that. But
Thomas Franks people.
Amazing stuff. But look, I do think it does get done. I think that Tottenham probably thought they were pulling a fast one would be unfair, but you know what I mean. I think they thought we're going to get this through a player that everyone would have gone, wow, what a deal, what a transfer. To be honest, I think still at around about 70 million. That's wow, what a deal, what a player. For a long term, good age. And he's only 25 years old. Into an England squad. He's been round the block a bit now as well. From Wolves to Forest and play. Forest have been promoted into the Europa League from the Conference League as a result of Crystal Palace. So, but he's 25. It's time to play in the Champions League. So he will. I think if you caught him very honestly, he'll want to go. And I'm sorry, Forest fans, and of Ross, one of my best pals, who I know will be watching this, who's a Forest season ticket holder. I know you're going to scoff, but it is an upgrade because of the Champions League for Gibbs-White to go to Forest to Spurs because of the Champions League. Obviously, the European Cups and the history of Forest and all that stuff. I take all of that.
Don't mention the stadium.
No.
Well,
yeah, come on. But look, it is an upgrade because of the Champions League. If Tottenham were in the Conference League and Forest were in the Europa League, or Tottenham were in the Europa League and Forest were in the Champions League, this wouldn't be happening.
Yeah.
And that's the only way to look at it. And it is a mega exciting transfer. And look, to answer your question, I think that Tottenham wouldn't then get Eze as well, because you'd have Maddison and Gibbs-White as your attacking midfield number 10 options.
And Kudus who can play there.
And Kudus who can play there as well, or out wide. But again, who knows? This has been a transfer window of left field one so far.
Dean Scoggins absolutely loving the idea of Tottenham's just going on an absolute spending spree. Right, Dino, Marcus Rashford. Now, I feel like we've said this name an awful lot, not only in this studio, but just around the office, all the reporters talking about it. You can't switch on the TV or the radio or pick up a newspaper this summer without a story about Marcus Rashford. Now, similarly, to with Jadon Sancho, Manchester United just continues the proof of the absolute malaise at that football club. You've got Rashford plus 4 players training alone, having to come into Carrington post 5 p.m. once Amorim.
That's a great line from Martin Blackburn this morning about that. Look, you can come in, but it's almost like when you've only got an off-peak membership for the gym, isn't it? That you're not allowed to come in at peak times and train with all the gym bunnies.
This is Martin's piece. Old Fens, Jose eyes link up with outcast Rashford. So as we were saying there, so it's Rashford, Garnacho, Sancho, Anthony, Malacia, who are the 5 having to go in out of hours training at Carrington while they... you
can come and do walking football in the evening with the OAPs, but you can't train with the first team. I saw I'm not going to take credit for this because I haven't thought of this, but I saw this yesterday on social media. It's like, these 5 are the 5 sandwiches that go out of date on the M&S shelf.
The yellow stickers.
You don't buy them at 5 to 5, do you? You wait till 5 o'clock for the yellow stickers to go on them so that they've been reduced.
On the whoops aisle,
and that's where we are with these players.
Everyone is aware now how desperate United are to get rid of these players, and the weak position that they are, the really weak negotiating position they are in. One of the lines saying that Rashford may need some persuading to move to Turkey. Now,
Do you think Jose Mourinho's the man to do that?
Well, but I mean, if you're going to, surely a link up with Jose would be the way forward. Now, what do you think from Marcus Rashford's point of view?
Bayern Munich have been mentioned as well, and Bayern Munich do need another forward player, and they will play the market very well. Bayern, they have done over the years. They need another. Leroy Sané left there last year in this window. Incidentally, gone to Turkey as well.
Yeah.
But they will need another wide player. Saudi Arabian clubs are always coming at it late. The transfer windows are different. So, and then there's Barcelona, who they do like him, but it's such a difficult deal to do because if you have a valuation for a player, you're going to be miles off with Marcus Rashford to what Manchester United's value of him is because of their contractual obligations. But I don't think he's being delusional. He's an incredibly, incredibly talented footballer who, let's be honest, if he was playing at the peak of his powers, goes to the World Cup.
Yeah, but Dino, that's an if, isn't it?
But this is where this move comes in for him. This is where this is now the most important month of Marcus Rashford's career. Because if he does, I don't want to downplay Turkish football. I love watching some of the Turkish football and the passion from the fans, and the quality of it's gone up enormously.
And there's money in there.
Yeah, and our club's now watching, when we go and play them in European football, you think, this is not a Turkish club of 10 years ago where you feel like you're going to roll them over.
Yeah.
It's almost like a who's who of European players who have been on a journey and got to Turkey.
Yeah.
But if he goes to Turkey, he's not getting in the England squad. No. He's not then going to go there. Even if he got 30 goals for Fenerbahce under Jose and got to the quarterfinals of the European competition, he's not getting in the England squad. So that's where the problem comes, because you're almost narrowing Marcus Rashford's market down to about 5 clubs.
Yeah.
Who can, because you've most importantly got to be able to afford him.
Yep.
B, then he's got to want to play for him. C, it's got to be in a good enough league that he's going to propel him into England recognition. And he's got a camp around him who are all singing from Marcus' sheet. Yeah. Obviously, because that's what they're there to do. Yeah. And so it just makes it very, very difficult.
Right, Dino, run me through, we'll do one each, just the sort of deals to look out for / ones that have got over the line this week, very quickly indeed.
Well, just obviously Manchester United goalkeeper in John Victor is the first one. Would be a rate available for around about £6 million.
That's it.
He's sort of... they've obviously got problems with Onana from an injury perspective and a performance perspective. Yep. But if they can get this one done, that that obviously bolsters the squad.
From Botafogo.
And he was on PSG's radar for a while as well. But I can't say I've ever seen him play, so I can't really comment on that.
No, your knowledge goes as far
only
as
so
Europe,
far.
doesn't it? Yeah, exactly. Gyökeres, I was determined not to have to talk about Victor Gyökeres again. Arsenal have agreed a £63.5 million deal, 54.8 plus 8.6 in add-ons, 5-year contract. This deal required the agent waiving his 10% fee. So again, the world's slowest transfer deal this one ever, but Arsenal fans are starting to get a little bit jittery with excitement rather than jittery with nerves about the fact that they may have started the season with Mikel Merino, one of their top 3 striking options again. Bayern Munich also have entered the race to sign Eza, £68 million release clause, sort of head-to-head with Arsenal is a suggestion, but I think obviously company wanted to link him up with Elise, formerly of Palace, and Harry Kane.
That will be exciting. That'll be exciting in the next few weeks because, as you say, there's Arsenal, there's Bayern, there's Tottenham, there's possibly another in there. So if Eze starts the season with Palace, I'll be very surprised.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it would take some persuading to go to Germany, though. Danny Ings. Dino. Goodness gracious.
Your favourite. Look at the smile.
Rob Edwards, new Middlesbrough manager, looking to snap up Ings, free agent, 32 years of age. Really, it wasn't really Ings' fault, to be fair. From the moment he was signed for West Ham, he was not a West Ham signing, certainly he didn't fit into the system under David Moyes. The suggestion being, very strong suggestions being, that David Moyes, it wasn't a David Moyes signing, and it was in fact thrust upon him. Didn't do anything at all at West Ham. So, a little bit of a...
Ings can only get better.
Well, exactly, chance of a revival up at Middlesbrough. And final one, Dino, I thought I would save this for you. Luka Modric, formerly of your parish at Tottenham, and then went on to do a couple of bits after he left White Hart Lane. 13 years at Real Madrid, 28 trophies, plus the Ballon d'Or, whereas he's gone to AC Milan.
AC Milan on a free. I would have loved him to come back for one final swan song at Spurs. The greatest midfield player in my time watching Spurs.
There we go. Well, thank you for tuning in to Transfers Exposed. I'm Will Pugh. That's Dean Scoggins, the Sun's Deputy Head of Sport. We're with you every Tuesday and Thursday on the Sun Sports YouTube channel. So make sure you are subscribed, like this video. Let us know what you think of those deals in the comments, and we will see you next time.